Hi everyone. So I'm back from basically works. I've been back actually since a few hours ago, and I was doing stuff like having my late dinner, and I was doing some shopping for groceries and stuff as well. So I'm gonna make another video. So and upload this video for today. Okay, on top of the video about the DL thing, like getting hit on by men on the DL and everything. So and I want to just talk a little bit more about something else for this video about the myths about PTSD or CPTSD and trauma that need to be dispelled, especially from a survivor's perspective. And I also want to talk a little bit more about the facts concerning PTSD or CPTSD from my perspective as a survivor. Okay, there are lots on lots of ideas going around about like trauma, mental illness, mental health, and I think that it doesn't do us any good in this current day to have certain misconceptions and preconceptions. Even if you are not going through any kind of mental health struggle, it's actually recommended that we know about this because in situations that we find someone who actually struggles with that, like CPTSD or PTSD, it actually it is incumbent or necessary upon us that we learn to empathize with these people. And I mean, CPTSD and PTSD might not even be from narcissistic abuse alone. Okay, but let me just go through a little bit about what CPTSD is or PTSD. I'm not like a licensed professional in terms of this, and I mean a lot of it is based on my readings and my own like process when I was trying to recover from the kind of shock and trauma or having been abused by a narcissist and more and everything. So and it's a very traumatizing experience. So I think that a lot of people don't realize it. At that point in time, I didn't realize such a thing called narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder even existed. And I read about cluster B personality disorders as well and things like that, and trauma, and about the different ways to rehabilitate and like to so-called recover from all this. So and okay, just to say maybe to just give some shout out to this. There's a book like I mean the book by Pete Walker, complex CPTSD from surviving to thriving is the common one. Okay, it talks a lot about the symptom itself. We know that the thing about CPTSD or even PTSD itself was that just right after in the aftermath of the Vietnam War, which lasted for quite a while, when all these veterans from the USA came back home to the USA, they were not. Some of them were either crippled or having like certain scars, battle scars, physical battle scars. And back then, the American Psychological Association and even the psychiatrists themselves, at that stage in time, the APA wasn't exactly very accepting of this diagnosis for quite a number of years. Actually, was something that Pete Walker and Bessel van der Kolk, all these different people, all these psychiatrists and psychotherapists were trying to push for, and it kept on being rejected for quite a while. But it's like there was no way to actually so-called diagnose it or to actually to basically define it as CPTSD or PTSD. And yeah, that was until basically, yeah, there were certain prejudices and certain political biases. And what happened was that the PTSD thing is basically, it means post-traumatic stress disorder. Back then in the 70s and the 80s, with all this, veterans returning back home, basically people just thought of it as like, this is some veteran syndrome. It happens to people in war. But actually it's not really like that. Okay, once the term was accepted in later years, and there was certain like measures and certain diagnostic tests being created to actually understand it as well. And yeah, so you can also find out if someone is actually trying to fool you, okay, to pretend to have any CPTSD or PTSD. via certain questions that are embedded into the system or to the quizzes. Okay, and that was what I think Amber Heard failed when she was trying to fool the psychologist or psychiatrist to claim that she was being abused by Johnny Depp when she wasn't actually. So yeah, and she wasn't really suffering from CPTSD or PTSD. In fact, she was the one causing him the PTSD. Okay, so but let's just talk a little bit more about post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, the thing is that a lot of it is almost very interchangeable in some senses. Like, okay, we say post-traumatic stress disorder is generally the term itself refers to some like events or something that could have caused someone immense stress, such that he or she would not be able to recover instantaneously from that. So it can be as simple as, just let's say you witness the death of someone or whatever, or you witness an accident, or like someone who, like for example, people now, like March 11, which is the anniversary of the great quake in Japan, the Tohoku earthquake. It's like March 11, so there's this PTSD that has occurred, and there are people who have lived through that and survived. There are also people who lost their family, so that's a form of PTSD, obviously. So but CPTSD is complex PTSD because it's not just, it can't be pinpointed to one particular event, and it has a lot of different like causes. The etiology is a lot more complex. That's why it's called CPTSD, and the period of time could be also much more sustained. So that's why yeah, you have the C in front, and it's actually also harder to treat because of course in a lot of cases these people have undergone longer period of time in that traumatizing event or situation. Okay, like people who have been abused since they were young and things like that. Okay, the thing with my own experience of PTSD, okay, I believe that, okay, that everyone knows that I was dealing with a situation of abuse back in 2016 with a narcissist, and it was like I mean few months, but even few months. And one thing is this: PTSD need not be limited to like long period, so it can be like short period, it can be whatever. But the one thing is this: as long as it leaves its mark or imprint on you, and I mean some people do go through that, some people do not actually have PTSD, they don't develop that. But the when in doubt, you should be consulting like a mental health professional, or psychologist or psychiatrist, to know if, especially a psychologist who's trained to actually identify for PTSD. And I know it took a long time for me to actually go and see a psychologist. I actually told the counselor who was on my case about my situation, and yeah, I had those I wanted to hurt myself. That was quite a number of years ago in 2018, and so obviously I had like a counselor to see me on my case, and there were some changes in the counselor, everything. And actually in 2022, that was my my granny's passing, and I believe that I told some people that I had some rather terrifying psychic dreams that were like before the so-called trauma anniversary of the narcissistic abuse and the discard date. And yeah, but it wasn't just like it felt really psychic and almost spiritual. So I, at that point in time, I thought, you know what, my understanding of that thing, that traumatizing dream, was that I really needed to go and have some rehab or some therapy. Okay, so that was when I actually went to see the psychologist that was recommended by the counselor, who actually specializes in EMDR. And she just told me that actually the one, she's the second one, because the first one left, and then the second who took over her case just told me, you've come quite a long way from then. I mean, from now until then, like, at least she said, that your flashbacks to the incidents of the abuse and everything is actually way weaker now, and they're reduced in the intensity. So but back then when I first did the test, like for PTSD, the psychologist then told me it's actually pretty high. And the strange thing is it's not linked to your childhood at all. So PTSD that doesn't need to be linked to your childhood. You can have a happy childhood, but because later on in adult years you have had some experiences which rather challenging and leads to very high, like PTSD in that sense, the score or the trauma. Okay, so there are a few things that I want to, there are about 5 different myths. Okay, let me dispel these myths, and I will go through that and then I'll move on to the facts. Okay, the one thing is this, the first myth is that only those who have lived through war, such as refugees, hostages, veterans, etc., experience PTSD or CPTSD. That's simply not true. Okay, as I've said, it can be people who have witnessed an accident, even people who have experienced grief or loss in some form, or people who have been abused. Okay, they go through PTSD. Okay, they could potentially go through it. Not everyone goes through it, but yeah, it's something like a thing that could happen potentially. And the second myth is this: it's just in the head. So what is wrong with this myth is that they assume that you can just snap out of it and be fine. Okay, that's not how it goes, because it's not just in the mind. Okay, and it's actually in very wired. Okay, which is in the chemistry or the body. Okay, which makes me remember the book by Bessel van der Kolk. It's like a seminal book. The body keeps the score. So, but there are many other things like the human magnet syndrome, whatever. All this talks a lot. There's a lot of talk about certain mechanisms and certain even neurological habits. I think that which is a separate thing on to move on to the facts. But okay, the third myth is that you must be weak-willed or abnormal if you go through trauma and PTSD or CPTSD. This is not actually true, because for a person to actually develop PTSD or CPTSD, this is actually a very common experience, much more common than we expect. The underpinning thing about psychology and psychiatry is that the thing is this: there are neural centers here in the brain, and these neural centers they are linked to our nerves, our body. So when you start, your body is also experienced through the body as well. So when you get into a situation where you are being threatened, or something that reminds you that you're being threatened, the head down here, especially the amygdala. Yeah, amygdala is where you have this it fires and the memory center, and then you have things like frontal lobes, hippocampus, all these different things. Okay, they are responsible for, hippocampus is actually responsible for regulation, and the frontal lobes as well. So as opposed to the amygdala, which is the memory center. So the amygdala is a very primitive thing. So unfortunately we all have that. This is the reptilian brain thing. So that we all have had from our early evolutionary days, before we became much more like technological or civilized. And with this amygdala, the thing is this: there's no such thing called how do I say, it doesn't distinguish time in terms of past, present, or future. When you have that flashback or that trigger, it doesn't tell you, oh, this was back in 1999, 1997. Okay, you won't affect you anymore. This is not something that the amygdala tells you. It's actually something that you have to via the other centers like the frontal lobe or even the hippocampus, which actually regulates and restrains your amygdala from overfiring and being overactive. And the thing is this: unfortunately, in the case of like people who have let's say people who have lived through very long period of abuse, trauma, they actually grew out with it. They actually did a like PET scan of all these people, including people who have been through even narcissistic abuse and everything. They found out that actually there's a shrinkage of there's weaker activity in the frontal lobes of the brain, and even the hippocampus area has kind of shrunk. Okay, so like things like your ability to discern everything and to know like certain things, it becomes weaker. Your powers of discernment are actually weakened. So I always joke, like I said, after my abuse episode with narcissists and everything back in 2016, and even the flying monkeys, everything, I joke about it. I actually say, oh, you know what? I felt sometimes I say I'm like going through a kind of like a pre-dementia. Basically, I might be losing some parts of my memory, like cognitive memory loss. And some friends were saying, are you joking? You're not even like in your 60s or 70s or whatever. You're not like going through that kind of thing, but you're not like experiencing any protein deterioration. Well, there's some proteins leading to that kind of deterioration of the brains, but you're so active, whatever, but physically, and also you're still using your brains. But I said the PTSD can probably cause all these kind of things and early onset. So it's not that you're weak-willed or abnormal, because the body is actually the neural centers are actually responding to all this trauma. Okay, so don't think that way. Okay, and then the fourth myth is that there is a timeline for recovery from PTSD or CPTSD. Okay, I know that you have had a lot of these things on online. What was this thing about like there was one life coach like Richard Grannon, who goes by like neuro linguistic programming, NLP, to as a way to recover from all this abuse of narcissistic by narcissistic people. But I mean I've watched quite a few videos. I'm not saying that he's good or bad, and I don't want to make any judgments. I mean, there are people who said he might be a narcissist himself when he was doing all this collaboration with Sam Vaknin, who was a clinically diagnosed narcissist, who's also a professor of psychology or something like that. But I just don't want to take anything like for face value, regardless of what people say. But and Richard Grannon claims that there's like 2 years to be on a modest side to say that you can recover from. You start recovering then. No, actually, there's no so-called set timeline, to be honest. From the way you look at how psychologists and even psychiatrists will tell you, because like you can be perfectly fine, like between 2016 to 2018 I was trying to recover, and then like late 2016 to late 2018. So I think in fact the kind of recovery started around 2017. So for about like more than 1.5 years or more, I was trying to recover. And 2018, somewhere around like July until sometime like like even into 2020 coronavirus and everything, 2 years or more, I virtually did not have anything that kind of led me to feel very much. I wasn't triggered by the narcissist. I was healing. I was recovering, and then even like in 2020, I wasn't triggered. So the only feeling was that there were all these flying monkeys who were trying to trigger me and into all this PTSD flashbacks and everything. And I think the only time when it started becoming obvious that I needed to go for therapy instead of just going for counseling for like EMDR was only like 2022. So that the thing is this, the PTSD thing is like there's no real recovery. You can have so-called like recovered, or you feel better, and you can just, life can go on as per normal. You have flashbacks, but all of a sudden halfway through, bang, like after like how many years was that, like 5 or 6 years after that, all of a sudden something happens, and then your mind just regresses. You feel, oh, I need some help. You need to find a like psychologist or counselor again, just to talk through this and to work it out by using certain methods in counseling and psychotherapy, which is fine. Okay, so there's no real set timeline. Okay, don't blame yourself if you feel that after a certain time period like you're still not recovering, but at least keep on working on yourself, because eventually you'll get there. Okay, so the last one is that you can recognize PTSD or CPTSD via external appearances. So the implication of this myth is that you can even diagnose it by yourself outside a clinical or psychotherapeutic setting. I don't recommend it, because that the thing is this, if you try it yourself, it's like how do you recognize personality disorder when you're not equipped to do that? It's like asking someone who's not a doctor to actually look out for a disease. I know most of us self-diagnose. We start having a running nose. We're gonna like take some medication, sometimes antihistamines and everything. Supposedly it works that way, but this is a minor ailment. But this is in the case of minor illness. But PTSD and CPTSD is not like that, because it's very crippling. And so in some cases, that people, we are told in society just to put on let's say we go through some very traumatizing event, and we are told to just stop grieving or stop showing it, and then go straight into our activities. And after that, no one wants to show that they are suffering. Okay, so it's almost impossible, okay, to really recognize CPTSD or PTSD just by looking. And friend or acquaintance in the gym just told me, actually I don't even know that you're suffering, you are dealing with CPTSD or PTSD, they are trying to you're undergoing therapy for it. I said, yeah, I'm undergoing therapy for that, and it's I mean, it's not that I'm crippled totally by it, because I'm still functioning very well, in most cases, except for moments when I have really serious, like what I'm having going through now with the food thing, the loss of the appetite, and on and off I still get a sudden comeback, and then I'll eat a lot, and then I sometimes I don't eat, sometimes this kind of stuff. So which is why I need to really be on some medication to help improve my moods. And okay, so I have talked about the five myths. Now let's talk a little bit about the one, two, three, four different facts, okay, about PTSD or CPTSD from my point of view, or someone who has actually undergone it, and I also went for therapy, and I'm considered to be on a kind of so-called like road to recovery, and of course, even like the psychologist told me herself, you might feel that you're okay, but sometime along the road again, of course you might definitely come across, because Singapore is so small, you might end up bumping into some people or who are linked to those abusers, or those events, or which are triggering a PTSD or CPTSD, and then or you might just meet the abusers themselves. And she said that the best way is for you, okay, she said for me to go to the state where, like if I see the abuser, my life is just going on as per normal. I'm happily attached, or married, or even if I'm not married or attached, I'm just like living my life. I'm happy. I don't care. Okay, I don't care about them, because they are all in the past. So she said you can just leave it all in the past. So and so the one thing is this. Okay, the first thing I want to just talk about in terms of the fact, based on what I know, is that this thing is PTSD or CPTSD. Okay, it's variable in intensity and duration. So it really depends on the person. There's no like cookie cutter thing, obviously. So because everyone goes through different things, and so depending also on the therapy, on the inner work done, it can actually also vary in terms of the intensity and duration. So let's just say, okay, it can therefore worsen or it can improve. And then according to the symptoms are actually used as indicators very, very often by the clinical psychologist or the therapist, to help you, okay, the person going through them, manage them better. So I would say that is improving, but of course there are certain moments like this relapse, which I had some time back in when I was in Georgia, yeah, Georgia, of all places, while I was holidaying, okay, and yeah, it wasn't a very good thing, but and then getting sick and everything, so it made it even worse. Okay, and then okay, the second fact is this: the biochemistry and neurology of the body, especially of the brain, they are inextricably bound up with the experience of PTSD or CPTSD. So it's not just something it's not in your head, as in you didn't dream it up, okay? Because no one in the right mind actually say, oh, like wakes up one moment and say, oh, hi, I want to be suffering from PTSD so that I can get an MC, a medical certificate, to be exempted from work or exempted from something. No one does that, okay? Because our work gives us our money. And then it's like, for example, like when I had that PTSD trigger last weekend, not this last one that just passed, but the week before that, I call in sick, as you all know. I didn't want to wake up and just say, oh, I don't want it, I want to just sleep, and I want to just be late in my meals and everything. I didn't want that, okay, because I could have lost out in like 100 more than $100-$200 of actually $150, yeah, $150 for 4 hours plus, say, $120 of a salary. And it was like for one day, it was like, doesn't make sense, does it? Okay, it doesn't make sense for 4 hours that and of work. And so the thing is this: no one actually decides to wake up and then just say, I want to be suffering from PTSD. It's not something that is in the mind alone, okay? And so we need to take that into account, okay? That there is a lot of biochemistry and neurology, and sometimes even doctors also prescribe, like psychiatrists, they prescribe medication. Nowadays, even general practitioners are also trained to handle that by prescribing some mood regulators or things like that. They don't give you the stronger ones, they give you the weaker ones, so that because it might just be a minor issue of stress or whatever in that case, so they don't want to like end up over prescribing. Okay, there's a tendency to do that in some countries. I heard from in the states where people just go over the smallest thing and everything. Okay, but this is the second fact. Okay, the biochemistry and neurology of the body is inextricably bound with PTSD or CPTSD. Okay, the third one is this. If you just moving on, okay, bypassing and suppressing the PTSD and symptoms will not cure it. Okay, in fact, it actually further compounds the issue over time when new triggers or the old ones when the old ones which have resurfaced crop up. So in fact, it can worsen or devolve into deeper problems. Okay, if you do not actually address them. Okay, so like people. I know that some cases like society, uh, institutions like religious institutions or whatever, they tell you, oh, just move on, just whatever, um, don't go back to the past, it's all in the okay. You can't just think like that. There are certain methods to actually literally put it in the past, but you must use those methods. You can't just say oh, move on, don't think about it and whatever. It's not that simple. Okay, because by this whole thing about spiritual bypassing, it's, a lot of it is emotional or spiritual bypassing. It actually makes the problem worse. Okay, and it's like I always use that metaphor of the disease. You know that you're having a bit of a sore throat, but you're supposed to actually soothe it, but you don't, and you keep on saying, oh, I'm fine, and then you go and do stuff like drinking alcohol, taking spicy food, things that agitate and irritate your throat. And so, initially you have a sore throat, but from the sore throat, it becomes something like losing your voice, which was what happened in Georgia. And I thought it was okay. No, it wasn't okay. In one day, just after drinking alcohol, I lost my voice totally. My voice, I couldn't hear my voice. So, and I sound weird. Okay, in just one day. So don't do that. Okay, bypassing and suppressing CPTSD or PTSD and the symptoms will not cure it, but further compounds the issue or the problem over time. And in fact, it can devolve. As I said, it will worsen if you don't address it. And how does it evolve? It devolves into deeper problems such as attempted hurting of yourself, depression, panic attacks, suicidal ideation. Okay, can be passive or active, and also other crippling health issues like even autoimmune disorders. I think in my case that time I was like losing hair from the hairline wasn't so good. Now it's a bit better. I mean, it can't be like I can't be like back at my 20s or whatever, my early, but I still look like my hairline is okay, and my doctor told me it's okay. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I just want to keep my hair, and at the point in time the thing looks like it was like thinning out, but now it's actually back to normal. So I think that it was good at least. And the thing is this, the doctors used to tell me when you actually address something, instead of denying it, you need to actually address it. And as long as you keep it, it's better. And or even keep the hair, or even stop the thing, or even to have it growing back is actually a bonus, but to keep it from falling out is actually something that we should be aiming for. And then later on, he didn't know what I was going through in terms of stress. That was another doctor, okay, who was handling this hair loss issue when I was really stressed and suffering from the PTSD. So, I don't like people who say stuff like, oh, you know what, I'd rather lose all my hair and whatever. I said, no. All these are symptoms of the the inner self. So, you need to do some address it. Okay. So one thing, don't deny your CPTSD or PTSD or whatever trauma you're going through. Okay, and the last one, this is very important as a fact about PTSD and CPTSD. CPTSD or PTSD is not a religious or spiritual sin issue, okay? And it cannot be addressed using modern day Pentecostal, charismatic, or faith healing techniques within religion, okay? So this includes things like praying away the blues. Okay, it happens a lot in faith healing practices, especially in Christianity. The idea is why do I say it's a fact from my own point of view? Okay, they have done, you know, a lot of studies. They found that basically, you know, not just with PTSD or CPTSD, but even not just for mental health, but even for people with all these physical ailments, they found that all this were actually basically frauds. There is a lot of this whole thing called the, you know, the placebo effect. The placebo effect, I'm not saying that it doesn't work. It only works to a certain extent, and it doesn't really create things like, of course there are certain things like, I mean, I'm a Christian, so I do believe in such things like miracles. You see things like, you know, in, let's say, you know, in the Orthodox Church, I saw it in the Coptic Orthodox Church, in, you know, videos where, you know, like a man who wasn't, like, he was paraplegic, he was in a wheelchair for quite a large part of his life, and then like 30 something 40 something, all of a sudden, like, you know, some miracle, he just walked out of the, you know, the wheelchair, and he said he attributed it to the Virgin Mary, you know, like, the Mother of God, who was like, you know, Mother of Christ, Mother of God, who actually, you know, was given that power, okay, by God himself, to heal him and make him walk without using the wheelchair. And he just walked, and he ran around the church, and he was like, the Virgin Mary has healed me, by the power of God. Okay, and it was like, I'm not casting down on that, because I believe in miracles, because as I mean, I'm a Christian. So but okay, the one thing is this, you know, the thing is this, if we were to just attribute everything to, you know, religious rituals and everything, that basically undermines the role of science. Okay, the way science is actually meant to help us. So I repeat this again: PTSD or CPTSD is not a religious or spiritual sin issue. It cannot be addressed, okay, using modern day faith healing techniques, okay, or praying away the blues. Why? Because these methods deny science. They subsist upon tribal superstition, and neither does CPTSD or PTSD occur due to a lack of faith. Okay, this is very common. When someone doesn't recover from this thing, it takes time to recover, and then the next thing, that people like those, some denominations like the fundamentalist Baptists, or evangelical, some evangelical Protestants, who are like very fundamentalists, or Bible Presbyterians, Calvinists, they have this idea that, if you don't have, even Pentecostals and Charismatics, they think that if you don't have enough faith, that's the thing that leads you not to be healed from that particular disease, or that mental health issue. In a way, it becomes a way of blaming you, okay, like gaslighting or scapegoating the person who's suffering from PTSD. So yeah, so basically these are the few things. And of course, because of this, I will also add that, you know, neither is CPTSD or PTSD your punishment. Okay, it's not a punishment for sin or whatever. Okay, you, no one actually signing up to say, oh, I want to be suffering from PTSD so that I can get a medical certificate, so that I can be sick, and then I can declare that I can be invalidated from work. Okay, no one will do that. Okay, so I hope that this will actually enlighten everyone in terms of this, you know, the myths and the real facts concerning PTSD. So yeah, this is that's it for today, and I have a few other things, like for example, yeah, there are two other things I wanted to talk about. This will based on certain things I've been writing and talking about, but I'll do it bit by bit. Okay, next video I'll be making will be about fear. Okay, so fear as one of the most primitive and basic of emotions, how it works, and how, you know, narcissists actually basically use fear against us. Okay, so fear itself is something that we need to watch out for when we try to recover from, when we do our best to recover from the PTSD and CPTSD. So I'm still dealing with it, but I actually have learned some very important lessons. I'm still slaying those demons. Okay, so anyway, I'll get to that later. Okay, because bit by bit. Okay, because I don't want to overload anyone. Okay, so have a good one, everyone. Bye bye.